pimp, not a simp. A pimp, not a simp. A pimp, not a simp. We eat so many shrimp. I got iodine partners.
My bitch a choosing lover, never fuck without a rubber. Never in the sheets like it on top of the cover. Money on the dresser, drive a compressor. Top notch hoes, get the most, not the lesser. Trash like the fuck for $40 in the club. Fucking up the game, bitch, it gets no love. She be cross country, giving all that she got. 1,000 a pop, I'm pulling business off the lot. I smashed up the gray one, bought me a red. Every time we hit the parking lot, we turn head. Some hoes wanna choose, but them bitches too scary. Your bitch chose me, you ain't a pimp, you a fairy.
A pimp, not a simp. A pimp, not a simp. A pimp, not a simp. We eat so many shrimp. I got iodine partners.
Baby, you been rolling solo, time to get down with the team. The grass is greener on that other side. If you know what I mean, I show you shit you never seen. The 7 wonders of the world. And I can make you the 8 if you wanna be my girl. I say my girl, I don't mean my woman, that ain't my style. Need a real street stalker, walk a green mile. Piling up the paper on the dining room table, cause you able to realize I'm the truth and not a fable. Baby, rockin' Russian sable, keep that chiller on the rack. What I look like with some $1,000 shit up on my back. I'm $1 million man, they need $1 billion bitch. Put my pimpin' in your life, watch your daddy get rich. Easy as ABC, simple as 1, 2, 3. Get down with UGK, Pimp CBU with B. Cause what's a hoe with no pimp, and what's a pimp with no hoe? Don't be a lame, you know the game and how it goes. We try to get chose.
A pimp, not a simp. A pimp, not a simp. A pimp, not a simp. We eat so many shrimp. I got iodine partners.
There we go. Hey guys, what's going on? It's your boy. No, I'm not doing that again. It's Arty. Back from vacation briefly. Thank you very much for stopping by. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I had a fantastic weekend. I got to see family. Got to see my brother, who I hadn't seen since Christmas of last year. We were supposed to go on a family vacation earlier this year to Universal, but obviously things happened. So I wasn't able to see him until this past weekend. It was a lot of fun. Got a lot of catching up to do. So, and then, but the thing is, this is a kind of a temporary thing because my sister was not able to join my parents. That was at my parents' place in Mississippi, by the way. That's where I went. My sister wasn't able to join, so I'll be joining her and her family for actual Thanksgiving in Maryland this coming weekend for the actual bit. He's my younger brother. I'm a longtime sufferer of middle child syndrome. My brother's a year younger than I. My sister's 5 years older. Scary. So an FYI. So I'll be heading back to my sister's. Yeah, I know. 2 things. I've already gained like 10 pounds, wazoo. But how you doing? So I'll be heading over to her place Wednesday evening. I'll be there until Saturday. So I will be back and at it on Sunday. I'll be continuing on with some more of my usual stuff with breakdowns. However, I will note that there will be a time when I will probably be taking a little bit of a break from the channel. Not like I'm going away forever, don't get me wrong. But a certain game is coming out in December that I've been anticipating for a very long time. And I swear to God, if they delay it again, I'm going to be furious. But it's supposed to come out December 10th. But so in the meantime, we'll continue on with this. Anyhow. Tonight, I know I saw that John, yeah, most people know exactly what I'm talking about. Juan Galt posted a new arraignment video. This one I've never heard of before, so it'll be new to me. I will be continuing Robbie's breakdown because when I ended for the first one, that was not the end of it. So I will be continuing on with his arraignment / pretrial hearings when I can. So, John, you do not want to know what my thoughts are on Sidney Powell. As a matter of fact, I mean, if you find me on Twitter, you'll probably know exactly what my thoughts are on Sidney Powell. That's the one avenue where I do kind of let go. That's kind of my Twitter account is where I kind of do let fly what my politics are. At least you could probably glean what they are. I try to avoid doing that on Discord and on my channel just for purposes. But yeah, I already have my thoughts on Sidney Powell and what the hell transpired over the weekend and those certain filings that were done by the Trump administration. But that's not what we're discussing tonight. Tonight we're doing more arraignments. So Gary, Reich, John, Joe, John, Johnny, Gary, other Gary, welcome. Preston Nick, I saw you up there. Not a brat as well. Let's get this show on the road. Again, shout out to Juan Galt for the video. I'm really excited to see him his channel grow, and it's really good to see. Like it's like skyrocketed within like the last 3 weeks. So it's good to see that he's getting his recognition. Oh God, before I forget, sorry. I'll get my brother surprised me with a care package with Bucky's beef jerky. My dad would send me these every once in a while. I fucking love this beef jerky. It's really, really good. But Bucky's is only like in Texas or something like that. You can only get it from, but he gave me some, so I've been saving that for tonight. And Doug, Kojak in the chat, he sent me at least what seems like $60 worth of beer. I know he says he doesn't do this for the money, but you know what? I'm gonna plug his stuff because of what he sent to me. He sent me a bunch of stuff in the care package, just like Jeremy did, and I'm finally trying out one of his craft breweries creations. His brewery is Turning Point Beer in Bedford, Texas, and I'm trying Black is Beautiful, 10%. It's an imperial stout, and yeah, I'll give you guys my opinion as we go along.
What's going through his head? Why he says things, why he does things. And he thinks he knows what's going through the judge's head, why she says things and does things. It's very interesting and kind of funny.
Yep.
I think you'll
Gary
enjoy it.
Bucky's.
The questions that I will be going over in this segment came directly from Mark Stevens at markstevens.net, markstevens.net. You can acquire the script that I'm going over in this segment directly from his website. It has these questions and many, many more. I personally have found Mark's approach to be one of the most effective out there and one of the most simple to understand.
So he calls Mark Stevens' script the most effective out there and the simplest to understand.
So I really like it, and I wanted to share this with you guys. Although I did end up losing this case.
One of the most effective out there still lost his case. So, yeah.
The audio from it is probably some of the best audio that I've gotten so far that explains and exemplifies how crooked some of these judges can be when it comes to taking your money for
corruption.
A victimless crime.
For the city of Fort Collins, caller, please stand.
She has to pause and start over because I never stand when the judge enters the courtroom. Just my personal preference, but I don't respect these people. I don't respect their authority. I don't respect what they're doing, so I do not stand for them.
Municipal Court for the city of Fort Collins, Colorado is now in session. Judge Kathleen M. Lane presiding.
It's a respect for the system issue.
Again, referring to the fact that I did not stand, but of course I do not have respect for their system.
All right, do you want to go ahead and step up to the podium there? For the record, it is November 8th of 2010. Are you Nathaniel Frazier?
I'm called that, yes.
All right, so you are here for arraignment on case number or summons number P0006126. This is a camera radar red light summons and complaint. And the clerk had you review the written advisement form on this charge. This is from July 14th of 2010 is the date of violation listed on the summons. A charge of section 1101 subsection 1 of the city traffic code, and speeding 40 miles an hour in a 30 mile an hour zone, 10 miles over the posted limit is the specific charge. 0-point defense because of the state law that relates to the camera radar red light type enforcement. So the
Right on,
clerk
Eldis.
had to review the advisement form with that 0-point speeding charge checked, and it looks like you reviewed that, indicated that you had questions that you wanted to ask with regard to your rights and options. So go ahead with your question.
So what she's speaking of is the consent form, or the form that they make you fill out saying that you understand.
Yep. Hey, Deacon. Yes, another ticket arrangement. Arraignment. Red light. Red light. You know, aka radar issued ticket, and 10 miles over the speed limit. Yeah, I don't know why he has this reverb. I don't know why.
And your rights, and you understand the proceedings, and of course I don't, because all of it seems like a bunch of hogwash to me. So in order to get to the point where I can ask the judge the questions I want to ask, I usually take the approach of, I don't really understand this, and would I be able to speak with the judge in order to have full understanding so that I may enter a knowing and voluntary plea. This is usually fine with the clerk and usually fine with the judge, because they have no idea what kind of questions I'm about to start asking.
The way he says that right there should tell you exactly that he's going in this. I mean, it's already obvious to us as the audience, is because he's telling it to people who are like-minded individuals. But that should right there should tell you that they go into these proceedings with without honesty. Like, they're going in with, not because they want to learn, or not because they actually want clarification. It's because they want to antagonize, disrupt, and stall and delay the proceedings. Bad faith. There we go. Jesus. They're going in bad faith.
Actually, I have questions pertaining to the nature and cause of these proceedings.
Okay, go ahead.
I would prefer to speak with the district attorney, but if I can just ask you my questions, is that okay?
That's fine.
Okay. First of all, am I entitled to a fair and meaningful hearing?
Yes.
Am I entitled to be informed of the nature and cause of the charges against me?
You are, and you have been in this written advisement form here.
Okay, am I entitled to responsive answers to any questions I might have about the charges?
Certainly. And let me back up a moment and say that the district attorney who you referenced does not handle municipal court cases.
Okay.
In municipal court, the prosecutor is from the city attorney's office and referred to as a municipal court prosecutor or assistant city attorney.
So it's a city attorney then?
City attorney's office provides prosecution, yes.
Okay. And is the burden of proof on the city attorney during?
And as you all know, he's going right through the Mark Stevens script. So, no shocker there. By the way, this, Jeremy, this is a Black is Beautiful from Turning Point beer from Bedford, Texas. Again, shout out to Doug for the care package. Really, man, I can't believe you sent me all of this. It's good. It's good, but I'm probably not gonna try it again. It's not my kind of thing. I think it's the aftertaste that's turning me off from it. It goes down pretty smooth, I'll give it that for sure, but it's the aftertaste. It's not hitting me very well. But I'm not gonna waste it. Don't get me wrong. Unlike the pickle beer, where I could not stomach that shit. What? Wait, did you just say White Claw? Oh my God, Deacon, my brother is obsessed with White Claw. My brother and his girlfriend, they're obsessed with White Claw.
In these proceedings?
On the city, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this court bound by Supreme Court rulings?
Certainly.
Okay, and is it bound by the constitutions of Colorado and the United States?
Certainly.
Okay. What rules, if any, govern these proceedings?
There are the Colorado Municipal Court Rules of Procedure that are adopted by the Colorado Supreme Court. There are also some procedural issues addressed in the state statutes.
Okay, and you have to comply with all of these rules?
Certainly.
Okay.
There are also some provisions within the city code itself with regard to that apply to traffic infractions specifically, as well as camera radar cases.
So all of those questions were basically just to set her into a box that she wouldn't be able to work her way out of. I asked about the Constitution and the Supreme Court rulings to basically set it up to where she had to follow or be bound
But I'm being
by
honest.
the Constitution and the Supreme Court rulings, which of course she didn't, but she gave me lip service and said she would.
Oh, wait. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll let me repeat that. But Doug, I am doing as you mentioned in messages to me. I'm doing my best to give you my honest take on how I feel about it. So I'm not trying to waffle or anything like that. I'm going to give you what my genuine take is. But let me go back a couple of seconds here. What he said, what he wanted the judge to say that the judge didn't say.
Be able to work her way out of.
With regard to that apply to traffic infractions specifically, as well as camera radar cases.
So all of those questions were basically just to set her into a box that she wouldn't be able to work her way out of. I asked about the Constitution and the Supreme Court rulings to basically set it up to where she had to follow or be bound by the Constitution and the Supreme Court rulings, which of course she didn't, but she gave me lip service and said she would. I also asked her about whether I was entitled to be fully informed of the nature and cause of the charges and proceedings against me. And the reason that I asked her that is because once I start asking more questions that she doesn't want to answer, she's already put herself in the double bind where she said she couldn't get a plea from me unless I knew or I was fully informed. And if she refuses to answer my questions...
At least he's being honest about what their tactics are here. See, the problem is that the judge is expecting this person to be coming from a position of good faith. And she was likely only expecting very simple and very basic questions or clarifications that he was having, not to be interrogated by the witness, not to end up trying to have a trial in the middle of an arraignment. And by the time the judge realizes that this guy is going to be asking question after question about question that are not appropriate at this current venue, then he's going to think like, oh, I have her right where I want her. And so the judge is like, I'm not going to answer your questions. And then he's going to whine saying, oh, well, I'm not getting a fair and meaningful hearing. Well, sir, that's, at this point, if you need any further clarification, get an attorney. And that's where the judge needs to call it right there. Get an attorney.
She's refusing to make me fully informed or allow me to be fully informed, and thus she's putting herself in the position where she can't even accept a plea from me, which is eventually what happens.
And you said that this court is consistent with the Constitution's and Supreme Court rulings. Is the ticket that I was issued consistent with the Constitution's and Supreme Court rulings?
Yeah.
Well, you could certainly make an argument that it's not.
Well, I'm not making an argument. I'm just asking a question.
This is something that they do to me all the time. They accuse me of arguing when all I'm doing is asking questions.
No, you are arguing.
As if
you are arguing.
These people are not literate and do not understand.
Okay, and now condescending motherfucker.
Between a question and an argument, and she does this multiple times to me.
Well, that would be an argument that the city would need to respond to, the prosecution.
That's kind of why I wanted to
whether it's a valid
prosecutor, actually.
So if there's some kind of motion you want to file, then the prosecution would need to be here to argue.
Well, I might move to dismiss, but I have a couple more questions I'd like to get answered, if that's okay.
And there she does a very classic diversionary tactic that they like to take. She knows damn well that the ticket is not consistent with the Constitution.
It is, though. They are, though. It's just that you are raising issues. You're saying that you're asking her a question that she's not in a position to answer. That's what she's saying. That's an argument. You're raising an issue that the prosecution will be required to do so. You are saying, is it consistent? And the judge is like, I can't say that because I'm supposed to be a referee. Right? If you want to raise the issue that the ticket that you received was defective, I know I'm talking with my mouth full. I apologize. I'm a terrible person. If you want to raise the issue that the ticket was defective, but that's not what your argument you're making. You're making your bullshit Mark Stevens script thing. Then that's an issue you raise in a motion. That's what the judge is responding to. Again, the judge is answering questions on the assumption that this guy is asking these questions in good faith. And it's obvious that he's not.
It does not allege a violation of a known legal right. It does not allege any sort of injury.
Doesn't matter.
She knows that it's
Doesn't
not
matter.
consistent with Supreme Court rulings, which declare
Which ones? Cite your sources, asshole.
that a crime must have corpus delicti.
You don't know what that means. And also drink.
And she knows that the ticket does not allege corpus delicti.
You don't know what it means.
But rather than answering the question honestly, she diverts me to the prosecutor, which is something that they like to do a lot. The judge will divert me to the prosecutor will divert me to the police officer. It's always a game of handing you off to the next lowest.
Andrew, thank you very much for the $10 super chat. Much appreciated, man. This guy might be smart if he wasn't such a scamming dumbass. I mean, yeah, pretty much.
Man on the totem pole, so if you do get your case dismissed, they can blame it on the guy underneath them and avoid making themselves look bad.
Is there an allegation of injury with this particular citation?
Injury to an individual?
An allegation of injury at all?
I would have to have the prosecution respond to that question.
Okay.
That's where I think the judge could have actually answered the question. But to Noda and Ava, if you're talking about Ava, if you're talking about or Deacon, if you're talking about corpus, what the corpus delicti is. Corpus delicti in Latin literally means the body of the crime. Corpus, body, delicti. I think delicti means crime, but corpus means body. But in legal terms, it means there was an archaic definition in the legal term, which means that that the state is required to at least provide evidence. Okay, the primary premise behind corpus delicti means that that there must be. Let me try and see if I can together. It's a doctrine that states that for a guilty plea to be accepted, the state must have corpus delicti. And what that means is that the state must have more than just a confession. In other words, say somebody says that I confess that I killed my best friend on such and such night with a firearm. In some states, not all, but actually in most states, not all, you have to have what's called corpus delicti. You cannot rely on the state cannot rely solely upon the confession to be able to prosecute a crime or to accept for the judge to accept a guilty plea. You have to have some elements that a crime was in fact committed. In other words, you had to have the firearm, you had to have some witnesses, you had to have something there to substantiate the confession in order to accept a guilty plea. And it was that the reason the doctrine was there was to fight back against coerced confessions. that the state would end up having from people. So that is what corpus delicti in that sort of context means. What these guys think what corpus delicti is that there has to be injury. There has to be somebody harmed. But that's not what corpus delicti is. That's not what it was ever meant to be defined as in our legal jurisprudence. But because in Latin terms it means body of the crime, they seem to think that a corpus for there to be a crime, there has to be a body or an injury of some sort. That's the best I can do. I apologize if I gummed it up.
All I have is the face of the ticket itself, charging a speeding violation. No indication that there's any kind of accident.
And how does a plaintiff acquire standing in this court?
And I ask that question because it's been ruled multiple times by higher courts that in order to acquire standing, a plaintiff needs to allege a violation of one of their rights. And they need to allege that because of that violation, they suffered some sort of injury, and thus they are entitled to some sort of damages or monetary compensation. And none of that is alleged on this ticket. She is
Again, the Mark Stevens and company operate on the presumption that in order for there to be a valid crime within the United States or the state of Colorado or what have you, there has to be an injury or harm in terms of either bodily harm or of monetary damages. But as I've stated, as the Supreme Court has stated over and over and over and over and over again, a crime does not have to have harm in order to be valid. An actual harm committed in order to be valid and enforceable. Not saying they all of them are smart or intelligent, but I'm saying that the state that such types of crimes are valid and enforceable in our country based on our jurisprudence.
of course aware that according to case law, the requirements for standing have not been met. So
standing is irrelevant in a criminal action. Period.
She defers me to statutory law in a way to get around that.
The city files a summons and complaint. One of the officers, in this case, the ticket indicates it's Officer Dennis Hallberg who signed it, badge number FCC 140.
Okay, and will I be allowed to cross-examine that officer if it does come to a proceeding?
If you plead not guilty and the case is set for trial, the city would certainly have the officer here to testify, yes. And you would have the opportunity to cross-examine. It does indicate that on the rights on that written advisement form that you reviewed. Number 5 says at trial to testify or not, to present evidence and cross-examine witnesses for the city.
Okay. I apologize. Most of these questions that I came up with were actually geared towards the district
He came up with, right? Yeah.
attorney or the prosecuting attorney.
Again, this is my first time trying this approach that I learned from Mark, and I was not completely prepared as I did not exactly know what to expect, so I did make a few mistakes, and I went in there with the wrong armament for the wrong situation, but I made the best out of the situation that I could.
And you said he has the burden of proof in this. Does he have the burden of proof on every element of this crime?
Oh, here we go.
He has the burden of proof, yes, with
Okay.
regard to the charge itself and all the elements.
And going into this, am I presumed innocent of the crime?
Certainly,
And am I presumed innocent of every element of the crime?
certainly,
And is not jurisdiction an element of the crime?
certainly.
So am I presumed innocent of jurisdiction then?
Yeah.
The city would have to allege, as they have in the summons and complaint,
Right.
have to prove that the incident happened within the city of Fort
Okay.
Collins.
I'm not really a lawyer. I don't really understand.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah, okay. And there it is. In the summons and complaint, they say that the charge... Here's the thing. They say that the alleged incident happened within X, Y, and Z, within these city limits. That's it. Rebuttable presumption. If you say that they didn't, and you make a challenge to that, then in a motions hearing, then they would have to confirm that this incident happened in that territory.
I just need a yes or no. Am I presumed innocent of jurisdiction of this crime?
This is a question that she does not want to answer. The reason being is that if she admits that she presumes to not have jurisdiction, if she admits that she presumes me innocent of every element, including jurisdiction, that is basically her saying that she presumes not to be able to even hear the case.
No. But because the problem is, you are presumed innocent, but then that element of jurisdiction has been demonstrated by the charging instrument. And then from there, it is a rebuttable presumption that you are, that the crime took place within her territorial jurisdiction and that you are subject to those laws. That's a rebuttable presumption. Now the ball is on your end to make a challenge to that. I feel like the guy, this guy thinks that, again, he thinks that the ball, in terms of the basic elements of the crime, the ball never goes to the defendant's court. But when it comes to jurisdiction, which is part and parcel of the crime, but not a specific element thereof, jurisdiction has to be established, but it's not an element of the crime of, say, battery per se. It has to be established that the crime alleged was in the state of New Jersey or within the county, and so on and so forth. That is where there was a rebuttable presumption once the state provides that this ticket was issued on this date, this time, and that this person is the one that the ticket was issued towards. So there's a rebuttable presumption that he was in the state of New Jersey at that time, and therefore he's subject to the laws.
It's a fatal flaw in their system. It's necessary to uphold the veil of legitimacy that they have this propaganda, that they tell you that you're presumed innocent. They do not presume you innocent, but they tell you that they do. And when you look at just the jurisdiction element of the crime, it is obvious that they do not presume you innocent, but they will say so, and when you hold their feet to their fire, they get very uncomfortable.
That's an unusual way to form the question. That's why I'm struggling. But that is an element of the offense that the city has to prove.
And so I am presumed innocent of jurisdiction.
You are presumed innocent of the charge itself.
So I'm not presumed innocent of all the elements of the crime. I just need to understand this before I go forward in it.
Yeah, and it's such an unusual question. I'm not sure how to answer it any differently than I already have.
Just with the yes or no.
There's the problem here with the judge is the judge is not used to the Mark Stevens script. That's the unfortunate reality.
Most people, when they go into court with me and they see the way that I talk to judges and the way that I put them in their place, they're completely astonished and amazed. But just remember, these are people, and they're the lowest form of people. They're crooks. They're people that like to make their living off of stealing and bullying. And it's hard to talk to somebody who makes their living that way with any amount of respect. Most people do it out of fear. I don't really fear these people. We'll continue.
Well, I've already said you are presumed innocent of the charge. One of the elements of the charge is that it happened within the city of Fort Collins. So you're presumed innocent of the charge and all the elements thereof.
Okay, so if I'm presumed innocent of jurisdiction, does this court have the ability to proceed against me?
Yes, because the allegation is that it happened within the city of Fort Collins, and so it's appropriate to go ahead and proceed with the summons and complaint presented as it has been.
Exactly.
If you listen to that last clip, you can tell that she's been caught on her lie, and she knows she's been caught, and you can hear the fear and the trembling in her voice, the choppiness in her voice. This is what happens when you stand up to a bully.
And who has to prove that I'm within the city of Fort Collins?
The city is the prosecution would need to provide that evidence.
And do they have any facts on record to prove that I'm, even right now, within the city limits of Fort Collins?
Do they have any facts on record to prove that you're in the city of Fort Collins?
Uh-huh.
The prosecution would have to respond to that type of question.
See, most of these questions actually...
You're getting into the charge itself. If you want to ask that the arraignment date be postponed for 2 weeks so you have time to file a written motion and the city can respond, and then we determine whether that motion is granted or not, and if not, if the motion to dismiss is denied, then it would be set for trial, and then you can have a trial on the charge itself if you choose.
Again, the question is too difficult for her to answer, so once again, I am deferred to the prosecutor. And that's her way of keeping herself.
It's not about deferring to the prosecutor. You are trying to act like the judge is the one who's supposed to be proving the elements of the crime. And it's not. It is the prosecutor's job to establish these elements, not the judge. And again, you're asking questions where, in my opinion, I would have said, okay, I've already given you enough answers to these questions. If you need any further clarifications, you may need to go and seek counsel. If you don't want to seek counsel, that's your prerogative. But I think I've given you enough clarification. So, how do you want to plead today? If you don't want to plead, I will enter a plea of not guilty and then move on. Have a nice day.
Out of the spotlight. We'll continue.
Okay. You already said that I am entitled to a fair and meaningful hearing, right?
Yes.
Okay. Could I get a fair and meaningful hearing if there was a conflict of interest?
Oh my God.
I would assume you would.
This is asinine.
Again, she accuses me of arguing when I'm asking a question, and she says she assumes I would argue no, as if anybody would argue that yes, a judge with a conflict of interest could offer a fair trial.
No, I'm asking you what the answer is. I'm not going to argue about it.
Well, what kind of conflict of interest are you talking about?
Well, if you represented a party to the proceedings, would that be a conflict of interest?
Certainly, and I would not do that. And if there were any conflict that I had, I would recuse myself.
So you heard her say it, folks. She said that if she represented a party to the proceeding, it would be a conflict, and if that conflict existed, she would recuse herself.
Right.
You would recuse yourself. So you wouldn't seek to enforce any judgment against me if there was found to be a conflict of interest?
If there was I'm not sure what you mean.
If there was a
there's
conflict
a
of
conflict,
interest.
we would deal with the conflict,
Okay.
remove the conflict before the case ever went to trial.
Okay.
If you go to trial, you're found guilty, then the court would enforce a judgment, a
All right.
collective judgment.
And who do you represent in these proceedings?
No one.
I am hired by the city of Fort Collins as the municipal judge.
Okay, and who's the plaintiff in these proceedings?
It is the city of Fort Collins. It's stated as...
Nope. Wrong, asshole. Wrong. She did not say that she represented the city. She said she was hired by the city.
Collins and is paid for by the city of Fort Collins. And when I asked her who the plaintiff to the proceedings was, she...
You lying sack. She did not say. She said she was hired by the city. She was appointed by the city. She did not say that she was representing the city.
said that the plaintiff is also the city of Fort Collins. She realizes that she just admitted that she represents and is paid for by a party to the proceedings.
Bullshit.
And let's see how she tries to get out of this. A lot of backpedaling, a lot of stuttering, maybe? Let's find out.
This guy really thinks he knows what he's talking about and is really getting on my nerves.
See how they specifically has it worded. It's a charge, again, defendant, they allege it's a charge committed against the people of the city of Fort Collins. At the top, it's in Fort Collins Municipal Court in and for the city of Fort Collins. So it's the city attorney's office representing the city of Fort Collins in general.
So you're being paid by the city, and the plaintiff is the city. And is that not a conflict of interest?
Not a conflict of interest.
It's not a conflict of interest. What is this bitch,
Hey, Kat.
crazy? She represents a party to the proceeding. She just 2 seconds ago said if
She did not say she represented a party. She said she was hired. She's paid by the city, but she's not representing them in this matter. She's there as a judge. She is not there to represent the party in enforcing the law. That is the job of the prosecution. You ass clown.
She represents a party to the proceeding, it would be a conflict of interest, and now all of a sudden, it is not a conflict of interest.
In the county and district court systems, you're going to find a similar situation. It's the taxpayers that are paying the judge as well as the taxpayers paying the prosecution, which is a public official.
So you're saying on the record, the fact that you're getting paid by the plaintiff is not a conflict of interest?
I am saying that.
Yeah,
Now, at this
exactly.
point, I should have had her explain how it could possibly not be a conflict of interest for her to represent and be paid for by a party to a proceeding.
Because because her direct role is as a judge. Her role is as a disinterested party. By this guy's logic, no crime could ever be enforced in a municipality. Doesn't matter whether it's a victimless crime or not. Whether it's murder, it cannot be prosecuted because if the murder happened in the city of Newark, then you have a judge or the county or Essex County, let's put it that way. In Essex County, there's a crime of murder that occurred there, but you have a judge who was appointed by the state, employed by the Essex County, but the prosecutor is a DAG or a county prosecutor. You're saying that nobody could ever be prosecuted for murder because of a supposed conflict of interest. No crime could ever be adjudicated because of how you're defining a conflict of interest. Unless you're trying to suggest an alternative here of somehow, somewhere, some random ass schmuck on the side of the street is brought in to be a judge in each action. I mean, because of course you don't want an attorney because you're going to think, oh well, the prosecutor's an attorney, the judge is an attorney, and my defense attorney is an attorney. Conflict of interest. No crime, regardless of whether it's victimless or not, can ever be prosecuted based on this guy's logic.
But this was my first time, and like I said, I made mistakes, so I continue.
Okay. Is this being recorded at all?
Yes.
And will I be, is there ability for me to get a transcript or audio recording or something of this whole proceeding?
You can do that. You are recording it?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And you said that it does have to stay consistent with Supreme Court rulings. The Supreme Court rules that in order for a plaintiff to have standing to complain against somebody, that they have to prove or plead an injury personal to themselves. And I'm not seeing any injury, and you stated that you're not aware of any injury being pled here.
And what I said is that the prosecution would have to address that. I'm going to stop you at this point because I think this really, a lot of what you're getting at is more appropriate in a motion to dismiss, and I'm going to ask that you do that in writing.
Can I just
so that the
orally
prosecution
dismiss?
can,
have you rule
because
on
the
it right now?
prosecutors are involved with pretrial conferences right now, so they're not available, and they would need time to review the case. So typically a motion to dismiss like this, I would ask that it be in writing, so I'm going to ask that in this case.
Okay.
And I'll ask that the bailiff have the clerk go ahead and postpone the arraignment for 2 weeks. Give you time if you want to file a written motion to dismiss.
Okay.
Prosecutor will respond, and then I'll rule on it.
At this point in time, you can pretty much tell she just wants me to get the F out of her courtroom. She wants to get rid of me. She does not want to answer any more of my questions, and she keeps avoiding and putting me off to the prosecutor. And this is typical. This is usually what I get. As soon as I start asking any questions that get at the heart of what they're doing, this is usually the response I get. Get out of my courtroom. I don't need to answer these questions.
And if I do put in a motion to dismiss, do I give it to you and to the prosecutor, or just to the prosecutor?
You would file it with the court and give a copy to the prosecutor, and the copy filed with the court should indicate that you have given a copy to the other side, which in this case is the prosecution.
All right, and if I do make out a motion to dismiss, does the prosecutor have to address each issue that I bring up in the motion in order for you to deny it, or I don't really understand
It
all
depends. Sometimes they will address each
Shout out to Juan Galt in the chat, by the way.
individual item. Sometimes they will give a general response. Sometimes if they feel that all of the items really relate to factual issues that are to be determined at trial, they'll just indicate that and ask that the motion be denied. It depends. That will be up to the prosecution as to how they respond to the motion.
And just for good measure, because I'm still confused on how she can represent a party and it not be a conflict of interest, I ask one more time.
Again, I have to emphasize that at no point did she ever say that she represented a party. She was hired by the party. That's not the same thing.
Okay, and just one more last time, just so I'm 100% sure about this. You're saying that you are paid by the plaintiff, but that is not a conflict of interest.
And I've already answered that question.
Can I just get a yes or a no?
I'll have you go with the bailiff at this point.
Okay.
Postpone it.
All right, you have a good day.
You too.
So in recap, this judge proves herself to have a lot of patience, and thus I get to ask a lot of questions, which is why I really like this audio. And also, she proves herself to be quite a liar and quite a manipulator of words and circumstances, which is
Fucking projection. Holy, oh my god. Projection much?
also why I really like this audio. A few things that I do differently now, I make them explain. If they say something and it doesn't make sense to me, I demand that they explain. If she says, or if any judge says, it's not a conflict of interest, I hold their feet to the fire. I say, how could it not be a conflict of interest? If they say, well, the city has to prove this, I'll ask them, what do you mean when you say the city? What exactly is the city? What are you talking about? I don't let them just...
Okay, I'm sorry, sir, but I'm not here to give you a fucking civics lesson. If you don't know what a city is, then I might have to appoint you counsel. But we'll have to go through a hearing for that first. But seriously, sir, if you don't need to know what a city is, we are in some trouble here.
just get away with using these words that
I have
nothing
questions about your mental faculties.
to refer to them. I want them
Hey,
to
Emmy.
give me the referent. I want to understand what they're saying. They need a voluntary and fully understood plea. I want to fully understand. Also, I don't beat them over the head. Usually I've found, since this incident, I have found that it's better just to get in, get out, make my point real quick, and let the cards fall where they may. If I've gotten through the first set of questions and a judge doesn't throw it out right then, beating them over the head with the facts is probably not the most effective thing to do. Continually trying to push them and force them is probably just going to get them more and more defensive. So I usually only go in with one set of questions now. What I like to go in with that I didn't go in with this particular time, and what I found to be most effective, at least at the judge level, is just to simply ask, Your Honor, is this court bound by the Constitution and Supreme Court rulings? They'll usually say yes, and then I'll say, okay, would I have to enter a plea if there wasn't a crime presented? And since there's not a crime presented...
Again, that's your presumption. Your presumption of what a crime is, and your presumption of what a crime is incorrect. That's your problem, not mine, and not the court's.
I've never had them answer that question once. Usually it's continuance or dismissed.
Which goes, which I apologize for pausing again, which goes to Juan Galt's earlier videos, talking to Mark Stevens and saying that these guys, they want to have a philosophical debate in a courtroom, not a legal one. And that's where they screw up.
But these are the things that you learn. Subsequently, I learned that when you go in there and beat a judge over the head with the fact that they're a fraud, then every time you go before that judge again, as is the case with this lady, they usually don't care. The last time I went before this lady, I had cops, like 6 or 7 cops in the courtroom taking pictures of me. I got a ticket in the parking lot of the court while I was in there. And when I was leaving the court, I got followed by 5 or 6 police cars and ticketed again for the exact same infraction that they ticketed me for while I was in court. So this judge was very threatened by this, and I would only be able to say that the reason I believe that they feel so threatened that they go to such
It was probably because they realized that you're a soft sit, you're a right to travel dude, and so they probably thought, rightly or wrongly, that they could probably get some money out of you because you're probably not going to follow the proper laws. Probably not the best thing for a city to do, but maybe that's probably why they went after you. Not because you were threatening the system, was because you were an easy mark.
extreme measures is because their entire lifestyle, their entire reality is built on a house of cards. Their authority is built on a house of cards. When you start questioning them, it's like pulling out one of the bottom cards, and pretty soon their entire reality comes falling down. And when that happens, and when the people realize that the emperor has no clothes, these people are going to have to go out and get real jobs. These people are going to have to get jobs where they get paid on a voluntary basis like the rest of us. And most of these people have no idea how to do anything except...
Which again goes to my argument of how would actual crimes be prosecuted in your worldview without the judges, prosecutors, etc. You talk so much about victimless crimes, about these fake crimes and fake infractions, but what happens when there's a real crime? What happens when there's an actual murder? What happens when somebody gets drunk, drives on the wrong side of the road, and kills a family of 4? Who prosecutes that? Who adjudicates that? When the judges, the crooks are no longer around, right? They never answer that question.
For bully people and steal from them. And there's not much need for that in the job market. So they need to hold on to their positions of authority because otherwise they are useless to society. And that's got to be a pretty scary position to be in. So don't expect them to go down without a fight.
Oh my god.
This guy is fucking stupid!
Thank you, George Carlin.